C.B.Radio.
Appreciate him for standing by. Because Lord knows. Hey, 495, man. It's always a pleasure with a double measure. Your Mad Hatter in test mode way down here in the swamps.
Okay. We are Mondo Mag Mount Mania. So, that's the story with that right there. You might be like, what the hell's going on with the one with the cardboard tube on it? Well, that's the mystery antenna. So, I can't just, be having that thing hanging out in the wind, right? So, watch the camera shake here. I'm going to try and get another shot of this from the backside here. So, this is what we got here. We got the big tri-mag there. I got the tri-mag for the whip thing, but that thing was never really meant to be on a vehicle, and I'd have to have the whip off of it anyways, and the magnet's basically the same, so there's no sense of putting two tri-mags on there. And then again, that Wilson mount, the Wilson 5000 and the Striker, those are basically the same magnet. I already tested the Tram and the Wilson 500 in the last test, so no need to put those on there. So pretty much just the Striker, the Tram, the 5000, and then the mystery antenna. So get another shot here from the back. Okay. It's so bright out today, I have no idea what's on the camera and what isn't. So there we go. And you might be saying, well, you've got that C.B.Radio P2000 folded down. Yeah, I gotta have it folded down. There's no way I'm gonna get out of here and onto my main little road there without whacking everything. You gotta remember, this is a taller vehicle. And like I said, that antenna, that P2000, that's a nice antenna, but it's a little impractical for certain things. So that's just how you're gonna have to kind of deal with that there. So anyway, there we go. Okay, well, they all made it. No big surprise there. Didn't really anticipate any failures with these, and like I said, that C.B.Radio P2000, I would have had to have, these, the ones that are on here were whacking stuff as it was, let alone there was no way that thing was going to be able to be stood up. But if you'll see how I kind of got it zip tied or just kind of anchored to that back roof rack there, that's exactly pretty much how you would use this antenna. You would put it on, the front of your vehicle or like a work truck or something, and you'd put it on the cab part, and then you'd fold it back, and maybe put something on the end of the whip there, or just kind of attach it to something so it's not flopping around. And then when you got to where you were going, you would deploy it and put it up. So that is pretty much how I see this antenna being used for the most part. And for that use, it's very practical. Like, I mean, if you're going to go camping or something, and maybe you just want a smaller antenna on there, like like one of these other ones to talk on. But when you get where you're going, you raise this one up. So from that perspective, I think it's a pretty good antenna, and like I said, and I said in the beginning, it might be a little impractical for certain situations, but it definitely has its uses. So, perfect example of that antenna there. So, with that, I'll get a couple more shots and a couple more angles, and then I will give a little bit of commentary on what I think. Again, I didn't expect any failures, but sometimes you do learn things by putting these things on and off of a vehicle, and I can definitely say I did learn a few things. So I will go into detail about that in a minute. So, hey, it's me, Shane from Gemini Garage, and we just got done doing the SWR check and the mag mount strength test on it. So I'm kind of going to go over these and sort of give my opinions on what I think about them after all that. We'll start here with the homemade, I guess you could call this the Mad Max Tri-Mag here. Again, this is a Tram triple mag mount that's had the original centerpiece removed, and you've got this Procom ball and stud kit bolted down through the plate. And then you've got this 4-inch spring here. It was also in the Procom kit. Then you've got this 6-inch riser here. And this riser is from, I'll put it in there someplace, I can't remember, C.B.Radio. And then this whip I had. This thing here, still trying to get the SWR kind of down a little bit on it, but because it's really reflective and just because of the way it is, I can see why it would be a little high because of all this metal. And then you got to remember, these antennas are starting to get into the neighborhood of kind of a base size antenna. And what I mean is, if you took your A99 or your base antenna, quarter wave, half wave, whatever it is, if you only had it a few feet off the ground, you'd have some SWR issues because it's just not high enough and there's just too much going on around it. And you start kind of running into that with some of these antennas here. Especially these ones here. These a little less because the load is, that coil's just a little bit smaller than this stuff here. And because it's in the plastic, it's muted a little bit more. Not really enough to severely affect the signal, but I think enough to kind of reduce the SWR a little bit, which is why things like these are just going to perform a lot better if they're way up in the air. And these you might be able to get away with just a little bit more, like I said, because the part of the antenna is shielded a little bit from some of the reflectiveness that it might, endure, and that kind of helps it out a little bit. So that's my theory anyways, and kind of what I've seen during the testing of all these antennas. So with that, the Tram triple mag mount here, it's I'll just go over the Procom. This all good quality, good stuff here for that kit there. This riser here from C.B.Radio, excellent quality there. I think I already kind of went over some of that there. But again, back to the Tram here. The Tram is got the rubber boots on the bottom of it here. So these are very heavy duty. This is a very heavy duty, magnet base, and it's again, I've been kind of modifying on it, but it's held up pretty good. So it's definitely a good setup there. So all this stuff here, good quality stuff. The P2000 here, this is also a very heavy duty mag mount, but the magnet stuff on here, instead of having a rubber boot, it's almost got like kind of a coating on it. And that coating on a couple of spots over here, it's almost like a sticker, and then I don't know if they just kind of coat it over it or how. Maybe it's just kind of a rubberized sticker on there, but you got to be careful because that can kind of wear and kind of want to come off and peel a little bit. The biggest problem is if you've got it stuck on the vehicle. If you shift it at all, then you might have a problem with that. Like I said, these rubber boots here are quite a bit thicker, so you know, this magnet mount here is probably a little bit better, you know, because of that. Otherwise, the magnet strength and everything else is going to be equal, so no big problems there. And then on to the Wilson over here. We could get into it in this thing. This thing kind of shorted out in the middle of the SWR test, and I got it working again, but you know, it's a great antenna when it's not shorting out or when it's having quality control issues, but unfortunately it does. So I'll again, we still got to do the signal test, so at the end of all of that, I'll you know, of course, comment again on all of these. So nothing really bad to say about the striker here. The boot on it is thick enough and it works well, and just generally no real complaints with it. The tram, no real complaints or any major comments with it. It's got a rubber boot on it as well. It works pretty well. The mystery antenna here, this is the mystery antenna. I ain't even going to say what it is. You could probably look at it and figure it out. If not, I'll definitely mention it in the end there. This has the tram 5-inch mag mount on it. No problems with that. And then, of course, the Wilson 500 that I already tested in the last one, and then the little tram. The reason I set those out here is because I just wanted to show how basically, like I said, this Wilson 500 here, there we go. This Wilson 500 here, and the Striker A10 here, and the Wilson 5000 here. I mean, those things are all pretty much the same base there. And then you've got these two triple mags, and like I said, there's a difference between these rubber boots and this kind of coating that's on there. But otherwise, you know, the holding strength's going to be the same. So anyways, once again, the only real difference between you know, most of these is just kind of how good the base pad is, how good the boot on it is, if it's got one on there. And then I kind of went over a little video about these magnet mounts here, kind of how I felt about getting them on and off of the vehicle, and then also a little bit of detail on kind of how I feel like the best way to use the C.B.Radio would be. So anyways, up next we're going to get on it with the signal test, so stick with me. Okay, so one little extra thing I kind of wanted to mention when it comes to these tri-mag antennas here is putting them on and taking them off. First, you're going to notice that the top of this roof is not perfectly flat. You know, it's got these kind of tracks in it here to either drain water, or it's just kind of the design of the roof. You're going to find that on a lot of vehicles these days, so you just kind of have to put the magnets, you know, the best place that they'll fit. But having said that, and that isn't the best spot for one either. Having said that, this thing here is basically like a 3/8 or 5/16 stud in this metal ball here, going down through this plate, and then the nut on the other side of it. This thing, you can muscle it around. You can, you know, you're not going to bust this thing, okay? You're not going to bust it. However, the C.B.Radio over here, and let me just swing around here just to kind of show you. Okay. Now, the C.B.Radio here, try and get a decent view of what's going on there. I think it's in there. The C.B.Radio here, you really can't do that too. This right here isn't steel. It's either some kind of aluminum or pot metal. So if you put this thing up, you know, and start reefing on it like that, I'm scared that this right here isn't going to be able to handle that. You know, just because. And that's, you know, you can't expect him to make this thing out of, you know, hardened steel. You know what I mean? So, once again, I'm not saying it's totally weak. I'm just saying that when it comes to peeling these magnets off of here, these things are really strong. And that one, like I said, you could grab that one and muscle it off. But this one, you're not going to want to do that. This one, what you want to do is you got pick two magnets and figure that those are going to be your hinge or your lever. This here, because you got some of these divots here, you can kind of get something underneath here, like your finger, and then just kind of lift up and tilt it like that, and then lift it off of there. If you really find it unwieldy and having a problem with it, you can just take the whole antenna part off, like this. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm not going to take it all the way off. Or maybe I will take it all the way off. If it's too unwieldy, just take the whole thing off. Like that. And then that way you're not going to have to worry about busting this. Because this part right here, you can probably reef on it a little bit. But you just don't want to pull on that joint right there, if that makes any sense. You can also put like maybe a rag under here and maybe like a little plastic pry bar to pry it up on there. Again, these things are really on there, and the fact that this has these kind of channels in here actually makes it easier to get it off of here. If you've got a really flat roof or a real flat space, you know, you're going to be in for a surprise just trying to get it off of here, which is exactly why you kind of just want to lay this antenna down and set it up. You don't want to be trying to get this thing on and off your roof all the time. So anyways, just a little FYI there about putting these antennas on and off with these tri-magnets, because they do stick. So have to excuse the wind. Okay, I've already went through these, but first up we're going to just start with the Tram 300, even though I did it in the last video. Might as well, right? Yeah, she's got about a 1.2 SWR from about channel 18 to it just keeps getting better from there. So this one's probably a little bit on the long side maybe, but again, SWR at on channel 20 is it's 1.2, which I think is what it was in the last test. It might have been 1.3 in the last test. I can't remember, but it's a good 1.2 here. So I'm gonna call it good for that antenna. And this got the Wilson 500 here. And I believe that one did have a couple of inches trimmed off of it to get it into the ballpark last time. Let me check my camera here. And at on channel 20 we're at a 1.1. This vehicle is probably a few feet over and down just a little bit further. It's a little, not quite as close probably to the trailer as it was in the last video, so that may be making a little bit of a difference, but yeah, it's an honest yeah, this one's definitely better a little bit in the upper channels too, but like I said, with it being a 1-to-1 on channel 20 and still having a really good SWR up there on channel 30, let's see, yeah, it's like a 1.2 on 385, so you know, Okay. I needed to start writing my readings down. Again, I already kind of did a rough tune on these things, so they, try to get them close. So, again, I'm just kind of double checking to make sure I did that right. So, had a little bit of editing, so I don't have to show every little single thing with me sliding the mast in and out of here. But like I said, this thing here, you don't have to trim this. You can pretty much slide this thing up and down a good 2 or 3 inches at least. So, you don't have to trim this one. If you want to move it back and forth to whatever band you're on, 10, 11, 12, we're good to go. So, anyways, this is the Tram 3500. They say comparable to a Wilson 1000. It's got nice coax. It's got that nice rubber boot on it. And the biggest thing with this antenna is I think I got this one on sale for $59 shipped, and I think regularly they're like $89. So if you're talking about if this thing performs halfway decent, it's a pretty good deal. And you get the rubber boot on the bottom, and you don't have to trim it. So hopefully it'll be a good antenna. The coax feels really nice on it too. I mean, you can see it's nice and it's flexible, it's not hard, it's soft, it's really nice coax. At 27,385, it's a 1.0 SWR, so that's encouraging. Because when I'm standing away from it like that, it was giving me a 1.1 SWR on 20 and a 1.0 flat on 38. And right now, it's giving me a 1.6. Well, I got this coax is a little jacked over here too. Hold on. So, that tells you something about where you're standing right there. Yeah. 1.1 right here. So, and then a 1.5 right here. So once again, it's almost not fair tuning some of these antennas in on a vehicle because they're so sensitive, and it's just they're almost a base antenna, and when you've got this much stuff around them, and I know they'll tell you to make sure to be within, not have 30 feet or of anything around you when you do an antenna. I mean, they basically want you out in a field or something, but it's just like, that's just not practical. This is probably more practical out here as far as tuning something in where I'm at, because even though I've got buildings and stuff, it's still a pretty straight shot up, and there's not a whole bunch of electrical noise or interference or a whole bunch of other stuff like that going on. So from that perspective, I think it's a pretty good way to tune them in. But once again, I'm not going to mess with that antenna, because obviously under the right circumstances, it's a 1-to-1 on channel 20 and a 1 flat on 38. I mean, all right. So I'm going to try the Wilson again and see what happens with that. I can't imagine putting a little piece of rubber between it and a roof caused the load in it to short out. Boy, that's what it was acting like. So we're at about a 1.2. Throw this on there again. Literally about ready to throw it on there again. Okay, come on, big boy. back off the meter and made sure the batteries weren't loose. I tried 2 of the other antennas on here before putting the striker on there that you just saw. So I've almost just retested all of them off camera again to try and see if there was something going on somewhere else. So now we're going to try the Wilson 5000 again and see if it's calmed itself down. No, it acts like there's a 12.7. It's like acting like there's a short in it. I don't understand that. It was fine. 13.1, it's like it's got a short in it. Well, like I said, I just tried the Tram 300. I tried the Tram 3500. I put the striker back on there. They're all reading what they were a few minutes ago, but this thing here, I don't know. Oh. Well, anyways, I only had one more. Well, I have to still figure out what I'm going to do with that whip. But I had one more antenna to test, the C.B.Radio, so I'll just go ahead and test that one. Oh, man. Okay. C.B.Radio P2000. This is some work testing these, because stuff goes wrong and you got to redo stuff. And I mean, it's not all just, oh, here it is, and no. I mean, there'd be some stuff going on here. Not good stuff. Okay. Oh. Okay. Let's see how I want to try and get this off of here. And we need to straighten this up a little bit. This thing is, I don't know, it's maybe 2 or 3 feet short of a 102-inch whip. I mean, it's the closest thing to a whip without a whip, I think. Pretty close to it. All right. Okay, well this thing seems to be in the 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, depending on where I'm walking. Yeah, it'll probably give you an honest 1.3 if you get in the right spot. And I'm not going to complain about that because that's a lot of antenna there, and you know, it's going to be any kind of inline, you know, meters or anything, your antenna. So I'm going to shut this off here. I'm going to go grab that whip and see if I can get that screwed into something and just get a general measurement on that thing, just as for somewhere to start. And then I'm going to go back and see what the hell is going on with that Wilson. So just as something to initially try to test the whip with, I've got this Tram 5-inch mag mount here with a 3/8 24. I got these 2 spring extensions here that are 3/8 24. These are screwed together. The ends of these things slip out. I really don't know how to explain it. I'll show you because one end's on the whip. But that should be at least 6 inches. I mean, that's good 6 inches on there, so that should add enough length, hopefully. Because you got to remember, the barrel spring is about 4, and then with your ball stud, that's a couple inches. So, you know, you're adding about that much length to the 102 to get it close to, you know, where you want it. All right. Once again, take your time to undo your coax. You don't want to pull on it and kink it. You do not want kinky coax. That is for dang sure. All right. So the whip here, it's screwed into this end piece here, and this is supposed to slide into that spring, and I don't know. I think the idea is the spring is supposed to grab it, but it's a horrible design, and but I just need a decent electrical connection to try and for testing, so I don't have to drive with it on there, so. Let's see what that does. Should probably put it on the tester first. You know, details, details, details. Yeah, it's showing me a 2.0 SWR with that, and the SWR is going down as I up the frequency, so I'm guessing it needs to be longer. I think. I wouldn't think so, but I don't know. Once again, some of this, you know, trying to get your SWRs super low, you know, and these, it really only matters when you're running power. I mean, you know, you don't want them sky high, you know, when you're not running power, but I'm just saying, you know, 1.4, 1.3, 1.8, 2.1, all that stuff's perfectly, you know, acceptable, you know, for a CB antenna. That whip should be doing a lot better, but then again, it may just be overly sensitive. It may really want to be in the middle of the vehicle. It may be reacting to this stuff here. It's not exactly the right length with those couple of springs in there. So I got to work on getting the whip tuned down a little bit, and I got to figure out what the hell went wrong with that Wilson. That Wilson's just almost like something went bad inside that load, like something just, I mean, you can see the meter on the things just going back and forth, like it keeps sending the signal in, and it just keeps coming back as a short. So I don't know what happened to it. Maybe something electrically inside that Wilson, maybe something in there was, you know, was kind of loose or getting ready to go, and then when I, you know, the jolt of the magnet sucking it down on the roof maybe made something in there come loose. I don't know. It was working great. I mean, it was what, 1.1 SW? I mean, it was working great. So I'll just have to go and see what's going on with that. So anyways, for now, this is pretty much going to be the SWR segment for the Mondo Mag Mount Mania. I will, of course, come back and update what's going on with the whip, and more importantly the Wilson there before we get into testing these things. So with that, stick with me. Alright, I put the striker load on the Wilson base to see if we could eliminate a problem with the base and the coax on the Wilson. So we'll see what that gets us. That's showing like a 1.2, 1.3, 1.1 up in the higher ones. Kind of, I think, almost what the Wilson was showing. That's interesting. So, anyways, it's not the 1.1 there. It's not the coax or the base of the Wilson, right? You know, like, why are you asking us? Well, this is the Wilson 5000 base and the coax going to it, and it's not freaking out with the striker load on there. So let's take this thing off and go grab the Wilson one and see what happens. I don't hear anything rattling around in there. Nothing sounds loose, so. All right. You definitely get your exercise doing this. I'll tell you what. It's all over the place, man. 1.2, 12.1, I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, look at these poor needles. They look like they're at a rock concert. So something has went bad. In this load here. I don't know. Take the whip out and clean the end of it, and it's just acting almost like a short. So, well, one thing's for sure, if I can't get it working, I ain't replacing it. I don't think so. So, all right. Well, fortunately, I got that problem taken care of. We now got back to the 1.1 SWR on the Wilson 5000 there. I don't know what was going on with it. I took the that mast. Let me show you. I took the whip out. Made sure the whip was clean. Made sure both set screws were tightened down. But when I had the whip out of there, if you take the whip out, this thing here unscrews off of here, and there's a brass stud coming out of there. I believe it's connected, well, to under the load here. This thing's glued on here, so even if you take this off of here and hit on that brass thing, you're not going to pound the guts out of here. I just don't think that's happening. I think they glued them in there, so. It would have been nice if maybe they would have, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're glued in there because I hit it on it with a mallet and it wouldn't come out. They could have put an O-ring around it and put it up in there and had you tighten this thing to where it, but I don't think that's how it's put together. I think it's glued in there and then this thing's just screwed down on there. So anyways, they made sure this was making good contact. I tightened this down on there really good. And I just tightened the base on here really, really good, and it seems to be working now, so it must have just had a... It acted like it had a short someplace, so... anyways, I'll fiddle around with it a little bit more and test it again just to make sure. And so that means all I really got to do is just get the whip tuned in a little bit better, and we should get ready to start testing these things. So with that, stick with me.
Okay, high power on the tram 300. High power tram 300. And low power tram 300. Low power. Okay, on the Mad Max width, that's high power. Again, on the Mad Max width there, that's high power. And again, the Mad Max width, and we're on low power. Mad Max width, low power, and we're using the President Randy. Okay, we got the Stereo P2000, high power on the Randy. Stereo P2000, high power. Stereo P2000 on the Randy, low power. Stereo P2000 on the Randy, low power. Okay, back where we left off, and we're at the Wilson 5000 on high power. Wilson 5000, high power. Alright, and now we're Wilson 5000, low power. Wilson 5000, low power. Alright. Alright, we got the mystery antenna, which is the President antenna, on high power. Mystery antenna, high power. Mystery antenna, President, low power. Mystery antenna, low power. Check, check. Alright, Striker SR-A10, high power. Striker SR-A10, high power. Low power on the Striker. Striker SR-A10, low power. 1-2. Tram 3500, high power. Tram 3500, high power. Tram 3500. Tram 3500, low power. Tram, low power, 3500. 1-2. Wilson 500, high power. Audio, Wilson 500, high power. Wilson 500 on the low power. President Randy, low power. Wilson 500. Check, check. And back to the Tram 300 on the Randy, high power. Tram 300 on the